You wake up to music on your water, and by the time you step outside, there are strangers grilling on the dock your grandfather built with his own hands a banner that says, Oak Shore Community Day. Kids running between chairs. A woman with a microphone smiling like she owns the harbor. 3 sentences that woman is Patricia Hayes, the HOA president. She's standing on my dock and she's telling 40 people that the place I inherited is community property. I never thought a piece of paper and a loud voice could try to erase 13 years of family history in a single Saturday morning. But that's exactly what happened. My name is Ethan Miller. Harbor Point is mine on paper deed tax records parcel number, but on that morning it felt like the rest of Oak Shore had been handed a script in which I'm the villain. My grandfather Raymond pressed a brass key into my palm the last time I saw him in the hospital and said, "Keep this. Don't let anyone take what we built." I used to laugh whenever he got dramatic about things like property and pride. He taught me to tie knots to check the wind to fix a loose board. But that key sat on my desk and felt heavier than a trinket when I pulled the curtain and heard the party. The private property sign lay on the ground leaning against a post like an apology gone wrong. Patricia had planned it, orchestrated it. Welcome, banner name tags, a grill, a speaker system. And when she saw me approach, she turned on that practiced smile and said, "Good morning, Ethan. Isn't this a beautiful community event?" I said, "This is private property. You have to leave." She laughed a sharp public laugh and said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "Check page 12 of the handbook. The Marina is listed as a community amenity." A few people nodded. One woman looked at me with pity, like I didn't understand what sharing meant. That was the first time I actually felt the scale of what power looks like, not a punch or a law, but a narrative that other people want to believe because it's easier. I called the police. I pulled county records on my laptop in the car parcel 087449021. Harbor Point. Brennan. Sorry. Miller Family Trust, deed 1985 fee. Simple, absolute. No easements, no encumbrances. The HOA website, meanwhile, had a friendly page between tennis courts and walking trails titled Harbor Point Community Access. Someone had rewritten history and printed it in a nice font. When Officer Garrett arrived, he was sympathetic but blunt. "This is a civil matter." He nodded at Patricia's binder at the 20-year pictures of families fishing and left with the kind of shrug that folds into paperwork. Patricia leaned in as she passed me and whispered, "You should have just played nice, Ethan. Now everyone knows you're the problem." Her voice was a scalpel of social judgment. That's how it started, not with a single illegal act, but with an organized campaign to reframe truth into tradition. At first, I responded like anyone would document everything. Photos, timestamps, the removed sign, the banner, the faces. I ordered new private property, no trespassing signs, and had them rushed. I sent a calm, fact-packed email to the HOA. Correct your materials, cease. Future events, apologize. I attached deeds and county records. That night, Patricia sent an email to every resident, not to me, framing the problem as a lone resident trying to restrict community access. Comments poured in, and the mob can be very quiet until it isn't. Who's trying to ruin our tradition? Typical new money. He's selfish. Within days, I had clients canceling projects, neighbors avoiding my calls, my mailbox spray-painted with the words, "Community, over you." My car was keyed, my garden trampled. Reputation residue sticks faster than evidence does. I felt the world I had known, the casual goodwill, the borrowed ladders, the summer barbecues dissolve in favor of an easier, angrier story. And then, in that fog of being publicly shamed and privately furious, I started to ask the awful question, what if I'm wrong? What if the community ownership is real, and I've been clutching a relic of private entitlement while everyone else enjoyed the lake? The doubt was like a hand on my shoulder. I almost listened. There were nights I opened my laptop and stared at the deed until the letters blurred and the brass key seemed like a token of stubbornness rather than honor. I considered selling. I considered giving up writing a meek email and making this all stop so I could get my life back. It felt possible that the cost of standing would simply break me. The loneliness was a tactic they'd weaponized social isolation, and for a few hours, for a few raw moments, I felt that tactic working. Then Frank Callahan knocked on my door. He's lived in Oakshore since '99, has a newspaper stack of memories, and he remembers my grandfather bargaining with the developer. Remembers the clause, "Harbor Point remains private property of Raymond Miller in perpetuity." He told me about a developer's offer about my grandfather's refusal about the line in a contract that doesn't forgive itself because a president gets loud. Frank's voice was small but certain. "Follow the money," he said. "Patricia's a realtor. Her husband's company gets HOA contracts. He gave me names, a county clerk, a retired judge, an attorney." The doubt loosened. I wasn't alone. The key in my pocket felt like duty again, not drama. What broke the spell was not emotion, but evidence. I found HOA financial statements, payments to Harrison Contracting invoices that read like fiction. Marina dock, repair, $8,000 electrical upgrade, $7. $500. I walked the dock and photographed it, the same weathered planks, the same breaker box from the '90s, and matched it against satellite images and old listings. Nothing had changed. Then, by chance, an old email thread landed in my inbox, Marina strategy subject line. Patricia laying out a plan to manufacture continuous public use monthly events, photos, witnesses to satisfy adverse possession. She'd tried a legal petition to establish an easement, lost it, and then decided to fake history. That line, "If we establish continuous use," the clock starts, was an admission someone writes when they think they're unbeatable. It wasn't theory. It was the plan. I started building a case the way my grandfather taught me to build a dock, board by board. Measurement by measurement. I hired a property attorney. I printed 50 evidence packets, deed county survey development agreement, the failed petition denial. Patricia's email, the invoice discrepancies. I reached out to David Kim, the HOA vice president, who slid me a USB with bank statements and recorded conversations where Patricia coached votes. Laura Chen, an HOA lawyer who'd just moved into the neighborhood, read every page pro bono and told me I had a rock-solid claim. Judge Elaine Harper agreed to be a presence at the meeting. We pulled a strategy into place: public presentation, legal pressure records requests, and a cease and desist. It felt like visiting the Carpenter measure twice, speak once, avoid theatrics unless necessary. The general HOA meeting was the stage. The community center was packed. People who'd once waved at me across mailboxes now sat with popcorn as if it were entertainment. Patricia arrived late. Red blazer, practiced smile. She worked the room like a politician, and I watched the small tells, the hands that trembled when she flipped through one of my packets, the eye flick to me and away. I invoked my right to speak. 10 minutes, the rules read. I had 10 minutes to show a room of 150 people the difference between tradition and manufactured history. I put the brass key in my pocket and started with a simple question projected on the screen. Who owns Harbor Point Slide County Survey Map, parcel 08744902221? Slide Deed, 1985 fee. Simple, absolute, highlighted language fee. Simple, absolute, complete title. Slide Development Agreement with In Perpetuity Clause. Slide County Denial of Patricia's petition for an easement. Slide Patricia's email. If we establish continuous use. The room shifted. The narrative she'd sold like warm tea began to taste like burnt sugar. I showed invoices side by side with photos, $76,000 in HOA payments to Harrison Contracting with no visible work. Voices rose. Patricia shouted, "Out of context." Her core supporters tried to speak up, but the momentum had changed. Frank stood. Judge Harper stood. The Vice President David rose and said calmly, "I move for a vote of no confidence." The motion was simple. The evidence was cleaner than any script. The crowd counted hands up like a wave. When the vote passed, Patricia's face lost that practiced mask. She hammered her bag on the table. Threatened lawsuits said we were conducting a witch hunt. She stormed out. I stayed at the podium because that's what you do when you call for truth. You don't sprint from the room to savor the moment. I feel no fireworks now as I say this. The room applauded, people lined up to apologize, but I didn't let myself dissolve into relief. There was a DA call that night, paperwork already moving an indictment for fraudulent billing, a suspension of a real estate license. The legal system, slow and imperfect, had begun to catch up. I sit on the dock that night with the brass key in my hand and the moon on the water, thinking of my grandfather teaching me how to check the wind. The dock is quiet. The music gone. The banner gone, but the fight isn't over. Patricia's fall is the end of that chapter. She lost her office, she lost credibility, and the attorney's office is reviewing charges. I won't narrate a victory party because there wasn't one. There was only the quiet of things being set right and the hard work that comes after removing rot. The last thing I say aloud to nobody and to the brass key is I kept my promise. Truth, backed by evidence and stubbornness, can outlast lies sold as tradition. Lesson: defend what's yours with patience, proof, and people who tell the truth.